Hello, folks. Yeah, technical problems earlier with the show with Peter Steer. We'll postpone it and get it sorted out some other time. So I'm going to do an Ask Me Anything, but not for too long because I want to watch the football later on. So there you are. I wasn't expecting this. So let's start away. There's some questions already there. So Mark Loop asking, is there anywhere in Normandy that even experienced Normandy historians visitors don't go and should? I mean, there's places I haven't been to. I mean, it depends what you count as Normandy would be the answer to that in some ways, which is the evasive answer, not really asking the question. In that there's one of the debates is when does the Battle of Normandy end? And I would say that the chapter break is the closing of the Falaise Gap, but that's not the end of the Battle of Normandy because you have to wait for taking of Le Havre in September. So the Le Havre area, which some people would consider after the Battle of Normandy, although it is still Normandy, is an area that's under-visited. I've been up to Le Havre area a couple of times myself. The cigarette camps, for example, the famous cigarette camps, there's a museum up there about that. But we're talking about late 1945 and the return of US veterans to the US. So there's that stuff there. You then get into the Orne area. You get that bit with the race for the Seine, Rouen. Rouen is actually part of Normandy, but some people would consider that campaign the kind of the race to Paris. It's no longer the Normandy campaign. So that's an area that people don't go as much. And of course, the further you get away from where people stay, the less frequently people go down there. Those who were on my October tour, we went the Operation Cobra days, a lot of driving because we're going down to Avranches, which is 2 hours from the beaches, and we're stopping on the way. So the general answer is the further away you get from the beaches, the less people go there, including historians. So that's that first question. What is my favorite World War I site? Well, I'm not terribly visited in the First World War sectors. I've done the Ypres salient a bit. I've done the Somme area a little bit. The Loch Nagar crater, I think, is an important site to visit. I also like Notre Dame de Lorette, the French cemetery, which isn't too far away from Vimy Ridge. I haven't been up there for a while, though. But favourite is an odd word, Susan, and thank you for being a brigadier, Susan, because with the First World War, my problem is I just find it all very depressing. And that is no reflection on Lucy and the hosting of WW2TV, which is really opening my eyes to the conflict. But I find when I go to the First World War sites, it's just the staggering loss of life. And you don't see that liberation aspect that you go to Normandy. My favorite towns in Normandy, you get that sign, this town was liberated on there, and you kind of know that the people there were occupied by the Germans, and beyond that date they were free. First World War is more of this long campaign where you don't get that kind of victory until the armistice. So I struggle with motivating myself to go to the First World War sites. If you're taking a road out of Ypres, for example, or Wipers, depending on your pronunciation, there'll be crossroads just out of the town where there are 7 Commonwealth War Grave cemeteries to the left, and there's 11 to the right, and 6 straight on. And you get to that point where you stop at every one, and then you start not stopping at them because you've just stopped at 7 and you haven't gone 5 miles down the road, and you're thinking, oh, it's getting towards lunchtime now. So then I think everyone experiences that first moment when they drive past a cemetery and they don't stop at it because they've just done, as I say, 5 or 6, and you think, well, what am I going to get achieved by stopping another one? So I find the First World War sites a little bit difficult emotionally to visit. So I have favorite places in Normandy because, again, you see battles here. At the end of the battle, this place was liberated. There's a sense of victory with some of them, alongside the loss of life as well. So yeah, I'm not extensively traveled. I do want to eventually go to Gallipoli in Turkey and see some of that, and I'd like to venture into some of the Eastern Front aspects of the First World War, but that's another story for another day. Yeah, as Brad is saying, Rouen. So Rouen is part of Normandy. So going back to that question that we just asked, Mark asked. Rouen, there's even Belgian SAS missions around Rouen in kind of August, September 1944 that I've got a little book on, but I haven't as yet found the excuse to go up there and start investigating. And Rouen for me is sort of, it's 2.5 hours drive depending on traffic. And so if you're going to go up there, you kind of want to stay the night to come back in. The last time I was in Rouen, we went up for a music gig. and we stayed over and did a few things there. But yeah, Rouen is somewhere I'd like to get back and do more exploration around there. Let's happen to some more questions. What happened to the Krista Bergson show? Yeah, it's a good question. Krista, I scheduled a couple, then he wasn't available, and I scheduled again, he wasn't available, and I haven't been in contact with him for a while. It's no reflection on his skills as a historian. It just was very difficult to kind of pin down a date, and I don't think he quite understood that I need to commit to a date. I have to advertise it, and they're live, and I think he kind of maybe thought they were going to be pre-recorded. But I will contact Krista at some point. Maybe something to do with the Arnhem 80th next year. I don't know, but at some point I'll be in contact with him. So yeah, that's another question. I'm reading through. My repair main man. My uncle fought with a 501st F Company in the Bulge and Market Garden. Any good websites? The F Company 501st. Not so much websites, but Mark Bando, the 101st Airborne author, F Company of the 501st was his favorite company. So any of his books, so Vanguard of the Crusade about Normandy, but it also covers Normandy and Market Garden and the Bulge. I think his other book, Screaming Eagles in World War II, covers a lot of F Company 501st because there were various F Company guys. I'm trying to think of the names of them. Leo Gillis of F Company, who Mark was great friends with. So if you have Mark Bando's books, there are lots of references to F Company 501st. There is a Facebook group. While you're talking, I'll find it, that Mark Bando posts on, although he posts under the initials of KF, which is because he got a ban from Facebook. So I'll just send you the link to that group there, put it in the message there. It's coming in now. There's the link to the group, just posted it. So Mark, there's lots of F Company 501st stuff on that Facebook group. I'll put it up on screen now so other people can. So that is the group. I don't know if it's a private group or you have to request membership, but it's called the Trigger Time and Tom Colonis Memorial page on Facebook. Mark is suffering from long-term COVID right now, which is a long story. So there you are. Just a weird question. I'm going to ban someone there. Best curry, yeah. Maggie's saying they're one of the best curries we've had in France was in Rouen. Yeah, that's not a question. That's a statement from. Let me go back and find some more questions. Try and do them in order so I don't miss them. So Bruce Day, can you recommend a book on the British occupation forces in Japan after World War II? No, because I never read one myself. There must be some, but I haven't got one in my collection. So no is the simple. I can't because I don't know one. Maybe someone else will know the answer. I have a suggestion. History, hang on. Seagurk, will there be any more Spanish Civil War shows? Possibly, but it's not a priority because there's enough with World War II to cover. And I've been asked to address recently like Israel, Palestine, 1948, and things like that. And it's like, although there's a connection with World War II, I've got to think of a reason to actually do it. So when Pete was on talking about the tank tactics, we were using it to directly link to the tank development of tactics in World War II. I may do something about the war crimes trials in sort of 45, 46, 47, but again, that directly connects to World War II. But Spanish Civil War, and I might end up doing a show about, I don't know, an individual whose career started there. Maybe there'll be a show about a German fighter ace or squadron or unit. But right now, I have no particular plans to anything Spanish Civil War. But if anyone's watching who wants to set up a Spanish Civil War channel, there's obviously a bit of an audience there for it. So there. Rob, History Explorer, like your investigation into Angerville, Opan and Grain, what other events have you dived deep into and researched to find out what really happened? What are you investigating now? Well, I'm not really investigating much at the moment, except the Falaise Gap, because I'm really hoping to do a book on the Falaise Gap in the next couple of years. So I'm not really at the beyond gathering what archives I have stage at the moment, but I will be over this winter popping down to Falaise Gap and doing some exploration down there. Bloody Gulch, which we talked about, which is June the 13th, southwest of Carrington. I was doing some work on that a few years ago, and then they kind of put a spanner in the works by building a dairy there, which I have no problem with because it provides employment for people in Carrington, but it kind of curtailed more investigative work in Bloody Gulch. And I've also kind of just got a bit bored with the 101st Airborne. And frankly, these days, I have so little time to put towards new research projects because I'm doing this kind of stuff all the time, streaming and planning the live stream. So I've just to expand on that. I have like a file called Paul's Projects on my hard drive, which is various stories that I'd like to get to the bottom of that I sort of have reached a kind of a point where I'm stuck with them, where, you know, I've got a photo I can't identify or an account of a battle that doesn't tally up with something. So if I ever got no time, I could go back and do that. But the chance of me having any spare time in the foreseeable future are unlikely because I'm too busy with stuff. I really want to do an Operation Varsity tour. Kevin Jones is saying, read the 6th Airborne and books, just the British books and just the British are sparse. You're not wrong. There isn't much about it. I've got one book called, I think it's called Crossing the Rhine, 6th Airborne Division in Germany, and it's like a thin sort of 40-page book. It gets a little bit of reference in general studies of the parachute regiment, or other particular units that were there, but no, it is an area that probably deserves a more modern study. But when authors are looking at Varsity and they're comparing it to the obvious sales you're going to get of D-Day and Market Garden, I can understand why authors are not going into the Varsity, because books sell, we'll buy them, but will they go outside that? So yeah, there is a lack of information there. Gerard, will I be doing book reviews for other reasons? Yes, I'm going to do a few more book review shows because I like doing them. I did the one today. I definitely do one on the Balkans, Yugoslavia in the next couple of days. Maybe do that tomorrow. I might do one on Western Desert. I don't know. I've just realized I've got these books, and I know we recommend the books of the guests when they come on, but I think it'd be a good idea to kind of go through some of my favorites, because obviously there are books I have in my collection, the authors are long since dead. And Greg Huff mentioned the Louis Allen book on Burma. Now, Louis Allen was a World War II intelligence officer in the British Army, so he died like 25 years ago or something. But his book on Burma is worth recommending, but it's not like I'm going to able to have him on my channel and him promote it, because he's no longer with us. So I will probably do some more book reviews of the kind of books that the authors are long since gone. So I will do some more of them. In the early months of your channel, you had a show scheduled about F Company 506. That was a show that I had an idea for. There's a really good book about F Company 506 by Terry Poyser, and Terry Poyser has been a mate of mine for a long time. He was a cop in Napa Valley, and now he's retired to Montana. And I'm in touch with Terry periodically, but he's just very uncomfortable coming on and talking about his work, and he's busy enjoying retirement. But if I was going to do an F Company, a Bloody Gulch show, he would be the expert I would bring on. There is the book, The Lions of Carrington, the German guy. I don't have any contact details for him, but if I was doing something on Bloody Gulch, it would be that. Or I would do some kind of live show where I'd bring in someone like Niels Henkemans or maybe Mark Bando. Mark Bando, I asked to be a guest on my channel right when I started it, and he's I don't think he even said no. I just don't think I got a reply to that. But people who know Mark are trying to persuade him to come on my channel, obviously when he's better from COVID. And he's a mine of knowledge about lots of 101st Airborne operations. So that is a possibility that may happen in the future, but don't know. So the question from Richard here: does anybody have information about the German Naval Infantry Commando Unit, Marine Einsatz Commando 40 in the Scheldt Delta? I certainly don't, but maybe someone else watching does. If they do, then post away. I'm going to look for some more questions there. I find reporting on the U.S. Army, Air Force, and RAF bombing campaign for D-Day very frustrating. Even major documentary films get it wrong, and the impact it actually had. Thoughts? I like the Stephen Bourke book that came out. He'd been on the channel once or twice. So there was the first book he wrote, Beyond the Beach about the transportation plan. And his Osprey book came out, I think, this year or last year. I forget the exact title. The bombing of Stephen Bourke. Look for it. It being an Osprey book, it wasn't terribly thick, but there were some great charts and diagrams and graphics of the bombing formations over the beaches. Sean Claxton, who's an old mate of mine here in Normandy, is I think we're still working on a book about D-Day bombers. I think particularly Lancaster's hitting Grand Comte Maisie, but yeah, it's not. I think books do get it wrong, but also I think they just simplify it. Particularly like the bombing inland from Omaha Beach, but I think, yeah, it's definitely an area where there needs to be more exploration and more writing. I'm going to find myself saying that a lot during that. And I've got another spam person coming in. I'll just get that ban user. Right. What have we got now? Going down, more questions. Is General Alexander underappreciated? Ian Carr is asking. Yes, I think he is. I think Auchinleck is also underappreciated in terms of earlier generals who were overshadowed by others later on. Alexander is not, of course, not just a field commander. He's also doing that kind of diplomatic work, that almost the kind of work George Marshall's doing for the US. He's kind of a conduit between Churchill and politicians and field commanders. So yeah, I think General Alexander is underappreciated, and I do believe James Holland is a fan. And Robin is saying that Mark Bando gave eulogy at Don Baguette's funeral. Yeah, Don Baguette and Mark Bando were very good friends, and Mark did tragically lose his son in the nightclub shooting in Florida, which caused him lots of personal anguish. And yeah, Mark I've known for 20 years, but he's not big on social media, yeah, I've kind of lost a bit of contact over the last couple of years a bit. Let's have a look at other ones. Gabriel Rodriguez, the show about tactical air power during the Battle of the Bulge was interesting. Is there any other tactical view of air power during specific battles? Yeah, I'm sure we will tackle more air power shows in the future. Again, whenever future ideas come up, I have to remind people I have a list of potential shows as long as your arm. I mean, I like 4 or 5 pages on my Word document of show ideas. So yeah, I've got a massive, great list of things, and people come to me with ideas, and I have ideas, and you know, I'd have to live to be 3,000 years old to get anything all through all the ideas I've got. But yeah, more shows about strategic bombing will definitely be happening. Nicholas Moss at Market Garden at Nijmegen. Why weren't ducks considered for 504th river crossing? I would just imagine that they had never been put at the front of the 30 Corps column. Did 30 Corps even have ducks? I mean, obviously in advance they could have thought about getting ducks up there. I'm guessing that the plan had never envisaged crossing rivers by anything other than bridges. So I'm not an expert on that subject, and I'm sure the British Army and American Army has ducks, but where they would have been in September 44, I don't know. They might have still been hanging around at various ports doing stuff there. It's a good question, and someone is bound to know the question to that. But I don't know. Yes, I was part of a recording of that's for a James Holland documentary that is coming out at some point. Battles that won World War II or something like that. I believe in the same series he was out in Lyon with Claire Mully doing something there about Jean Moulin. But I filmed the documentary with James Holland and Stephen Prince back in whenever the hell it was for a series. I don't know when it's coming up, but it covers Villa-Bocage, Fontenay, Rauray, some of the same ground that's covered in the Normandy 44 documentary, but I don't know when it's coming out. I can't off the top of my head remember what it's called. Something like Pivotal Battles, or Battles that Lost Battles or something. I don't know when it's coming out. Yeah, so I'm going through some more questions. Iraq in World War II would be very interesting. Yes, it's on my list, Ian, of countries to look at. I did find an Australian historian who was looking at because Australian infantry found themselves in some odd places in kind of 40, 41. So that is on my list, the ever-growing list. I have, so going back to Bloody Gulch, I have been on other people's channels talking about Bloody Gulch, but I don't know that I would want to do a show with me being the historian. I like being the host and bringing on a historian who could then be the balance to me. So I probably could do a show on Bloody Gulch. And indeed, History Explorer who's watching, we were talking about doing something and working together using our combined skills, if you like. My problem is just I don't want to be the host and the historian. Angerville was a rare one for me where I was the historian, but although I know a lot about quite a lot of things, I don't want to always. I want to always have a historian on. So unless I can find someone who can be Laurel to my Hardy, Morecambe to my Wise, whatever, I wouldn't be doing a Bloody Gulch unless I had a co-pilot, if that makes sense. Is Gary Cushing is asking, is there any way to send general feedback to you? I mean, the YouTube comments is the best way. It's a good question actually, because it raises the question of whether or not I start a forum somewhere or a Facebook page for communities, and they're all good ideas. And I've had some people over the months and years offer to be moderators on various platforms for me. The problem is it just means it's another place for me to have to monitor with comments, things like that. So right now I have 4 different email accounts which messages come into, and in any given day I'm doing between 100 and 150 emails. Then there's Twitter messages, there's Blue Sky messages, there's Facebook Messenger messages, there's text coming in, occasional telephone calls. I monitor all the YouTube comments. I monitor the Patreon messages and comments to some extent. And there's probably something else I'm forgetting as well. So another platform for feedback would just be really difficult. I mean, you can always send me emails via the contact me pages on either my D-Day Historian website or the World War II TV website. But YouTube comments is probably the best way. I read everything, basically. So if you comment on any show, I will read them. That's one of the things that takes up my time. I even sometimes answer messages in the middle of the night. If I wake up and I have to go for a pee, I come back and I check my phone. I sometimes reply to comments. If they've got spelling mistakes in them, it's because it's the middle of the night, and although I'm wearing my glasses, I don't put my light on bright because I don't wake Mag up. That means it's a message I replied to at 3 in the morning when I couldn't sleep, or I've got up to, whatever, check what noise a cat is making. Thanks, Woody. Your research is brilliant. Love the stories you've investigated. Yeah, and in another, if I was not doing this, I might be doing more research work. I might be doing more of that kind of authoring. I mean, the Falaise book is something I'm definitely going to have a stab at. I've already got some advice from publishers. I've got a couple of publishers who actually tentatively offered me a deal. So that is something I'm going to be working on. Judith is asking, my grandfather was a Canadian Can Loan officer who served with the 1st Battalion, the Border Regiment. Any advice how to find a roster of the regiment for the Arnhem battle? Rosters are notoriously difficult because the British Army didn't have rosters in the same way that American units had rosters. They weren't always written down, but I can't think of the title of them. There are a couple of specific books about the Border Regiment at Arnhem. I'm trying to think off the top of my head the author's name, and it's not coming to me. Someone's watching this is bound to know, but whoever the author of the book is, and I haven't got the books on the Border Regiment because I just haven't got every book that exists. But I would imagine that the author of those books about the Border Regiment would be the first port of call there. I feel there's at least 2 books about the borders at Arnhem, and there's also. Message me offline or in the comments. I feel I know someone up in the north of England who was doing Border Regiment reenactment who might have some contacts. I'll have a think about that. Sorry, windy pops. Trying to get some more questions there. Best book on Market Garden. That's a really interesting and potentially controversial book. I mean, anything other than Anthony Beaver, basically, is what I would say. That's really harsh, but Anthony Beaver's book is is not at all good about Arnhem, in my humble opinion. My favorite book on Arnhem is the Martin Middlebrook Arnhem book. Ian Ballantyne's book is very good. Sebastian Ritchie's book is very good. He was scheduled to be in a World War II TV show, then changed his mind. In fact, there's a good idea. I'm writing this down now. I'll do a Arnhem book review show. Arnhem book review. This is not scintillating TV. This is when I'm actually writing down things while I'm talking to you, but that's a good idea. This is World War II correspondence, Dave. Yeah, I've got a number of shows coming up. There is one coming up on Ernie Pyle. It's not scheduled yet. I mean, it's not listed yet. It's scheduled. I think it's in the second half of November or December with Ernie Pyle's biographer. So I'm doing one on Ernie Pyle. There's another one coming up on, and I'm checking my list while I'm talking to you. Again, kind of talk amongst yourselves while I'm having a look. There's going to be one coming up on so there's coming up David Kissinger is the historian. It's going to be The Soldier's Truth, Ernie Pyle and the Story of World War II. That's coming up later this year, but I forget exactly what date it is. And there's another one, and I've just got to remember, I've just got to look through for where it is. It's here somewhere. I can't find it now. Well, Melissa Wing, who was going to do one about war correspondence in Sicily, she will be coming back at some point. I'm hoping next year for that. There is another one, and I can't find it. Fierce Ambition is the show. It's about Maggie Higgins. That's one where I've been in touch with the author's agent, or she was in touch with me, and that's going to be coming up at some point. So definitely war correspondence is a subject that will be coming up at various times. Lee Miller, yeah, definitely. I will do something about Lee Miller because of the Kate Winslet film. I believe I have a historian on my list for a potential Lee Miller show. I was also trying to get in touch with Kate Winslet herself, but didn't get through to that. But that's another good idea. More questions. And there's some really good questions today. What do you think of the Grand Comte Maisie Museum location? Now, do you mean the Maisie Battery, or do you mean the Rangers Museum in Grand Comte Maisie itself? I think the Rangers Museum itself closed down a number of years ago. If it hasn't, I don't certainly have been there. Maisie Battery, well, there's a subject for an entire show at some point. If you ask about Maisie Battery, then I have to kind of have a sedative for my blood pressure, because that will get me very stressed very quickly. I can't think of another museum there. Seager, what do you think of doing a show about the fighting on Eastern Front, Western Italy following Operation Dragoon? There'll definitely be some Operation Dragoon shows next year for the 80th anniversary. The problem we're going to have for the 80th anniversary is there are way too many anniversaries next year for me to be able to fit all the shows I want to do in. So I will have to probably save some subjects for the following year, because obviously after August in 2025, the war will have ended. So to fill up that year, I'll probably have to go back and revisit some 42, 43, 44, 45 subjects. So some of the 80th anniversary subjects may have to be delayed till the following year, because I'm only one person. But yeah, again, my list of ideas, but there will definitely be some Dragoon content next year. Yamoto, neutrality. Yeah. Now, what do you think about Portugal and Spain's neutrality? Well, all of the neutral countries, Sweden, Thailand, Portugal, Spain, Switzerland, Ireland, there's neutral and there's neutral. And neutral is the word we ascribe to countries that are not participant actively, but that doesn't mean they aren't participating in the war in other less obvious ways, some on the side of the Allies, some on the side of the Axis, some going with the prevailing breeze, some were resolutely staying properly neutral. Turkey is another interesting subject that was having its own internal turmoils. We did a show about Turkey's neutrality. I wanted to do at one point a series over a week where we go one by one through the neutral countries. So we look at Sweden on one day and Switzerland and the other ones, and try and, I guess, decipher what is meant by neutral in the status. I mean, Ireland, for example, who are officially neutral, but thousands of Irish soldiers served in the British Army to help defeat Hitler. So the country was neutral, but Ireland helped the Allied effort in numerous ways. Switzerland was probably the other way, where Switzerland possibly aided the Axis more than it aided the Allies. But these are subjects that are worth discussing in some point. Go down for to find some more. As Brad says, so many ideas, but so little time. It's just difficult. Yes, Niels' superb book on Normandy. I don't know when it's going to come out. Niels doesn't know when it's going to come out. I mean, I've seen the draft of it. All I know is it's going to be worth the wait. The first volume will be out before the second volume, obviously. I know, because I know how much Niels knows about the subject, it will be an absolute game changer. It'll be a book that will be deserved with everybody's shelves, and I have no doubt in recommending it, even though I haven't seen a copy of it. I just know it's going to be an absolute mind-blowingly fantastic book. We just have to wait patiently for the publisher and to get it out, and at some point, hopefully. What was the problem with D-Day bombing? It wasn't entirely successful. And part of that is to do with the way the bomber forces were deployed. Part of it was to do with altitude, weather, target selection. There's a whole... I mean, D-Day worked. We have to... This is examining an operation that was successful. I mean, the Operation Overlord, the Germans won the beach at the beginning of the day. At the end of the day, the Allies are there. It's been a victory. But there are questions that can be raised about how some of the Allied forces were deployed, namely the bombers, and that's just the D-Day bit. But what we call the transportation plans, the bombing of German rail yards in Normandy and France and Belgium in March and April of 44, can also be discussed and debated. So there's all sorts of issues with the bombing that are ripe for discussion. We've discussed it a bit. It's a good question. Am I still giving tours? The simple answer is no, not really. As I said in my plea for new patrons, and if you're watching this and you're not a patron, please consider becoming a patron. I would like to make this basically my full-time job. And this year and last year, I was juggling this with doing tours. Now, every year, for the foreseeable future, I'll be doing a week-long Normandy tour in April and a week-long Normandy tour in October. They are the main tours I want to do. Outside of that, I will be doing work with historians who are coming over, writing books. I will be doing particular projects like that. Filmmakers like JD from History Underground and Rob, History Explorer. If they come over, I'll be trying to work with them. World War II Wayfinder, John. But I don't see myself needing to have to go out and do the regular kind of 2 days of D-Day beaches stuff, basically, because it doesn't float my boat anymore. I can do it, and I can do it very well, but of 18 years of doing it full time have meant that I'm just a bit jaded with it, and it doesn't bring out the best in me. So doing this is what I love. So I tend to put past D-Day tours on to those who still enjoy doing them and who are equally good at me, in many ways better than me. So Mag, my other half, does D-Day tours. Colin, my best mate, does D-Day tours. Roman, who's a French guide here, does the excellent tours. So I'm trying to go into next year not doing any tours and just doing this and just doing documentaries and specific projects. So kind of no is the simple answer. I'm not really giving tours. That's a good point by Peter O'Connell. I could be wrong, but it seems whenever difficult World War II tasks arose, sending the Canadians was the remedy. Did any animosity rise between Canadians and Brits arise? At a command level, yes. I mean, there are people who are fans of World War II TV who you mention certain British commanders and they instantly get defensive and angry because they feel the Canadians were misused. Brad is watching, probably has some opinions on this. I don't think there was ever any problem between British and Canadian soldiers, except for just squaddy rivalry, So if they were kind of queuing up in a naffy wagon, there'd be kind of jokes about Canucks and jokes about Tommies. But I don't think there was ever any problem between British and Canadian soldiers. Obviously, there'd be isolated instances of punch-ups, things like that. But at a command level, there are issues. There are Canadians who to this day are very venomous about Mountbatten, about Dieppe, and these are complicated subjects, and Montgomery, and yes, the Canadians do seem to get some tough nuts to crack. I would argue that the British also get some tough nuts to crack as well, and so do other units. But yeah, it's an excellent question, and the response is nuanced. But I think yes, there are some problems between British and Canadian commanders, and indeed the people Poles who are at some point part of Canadian forces. There's some inter-unit politics at kind of divisional, brigade, and command levels. But beyond that, it's kind of getting in it. Alexander Clark is saying we're welcome to use his Discord server if it helps. That would be an interesting solution. It would have been, I would have to monitor it. We're talking about the having a means of discussing things outside of this platform. I'll have to think about that. The shows I've done about Bloody Gulch, JD, History Underground. I don't think I'm in one or two of them, but I was there behind the scenes helping him. I'm giving him some advice. Just go to History Underground, JD. There's some stuff there where I am involved in the background, and I think I'm on screen in one or two of them about Bloody Gulch. Can't remember. Just History Underground is where to look for. How's the cat settling in? That's a good question, and it's nice to be a lighter one. We took him to the vet, Charlie, a couple of days ago. He was a bit lethargic. He had a little bit of a temperature, so he's on antibiotics at the moment, but he's already perking up, which is good. He's eating well. He's shitting and pissing okay, and just not playing as much, but he's on the mend now. So Charlie's great. We love Charlie. Papa Legba Wood. The paras used for market guard have been better employed as reinforcements for regulars in a conventional offensive. I'm going to say no. Whenever the question about market garden comes up and it's obvious imperfections, the thing is, the moment there is the Allied Airborne Army, the first Allied Airborne Army, which was created in, if my memory serves, August 44 under the command of Brereton, they were always going to be used, and they were always going to be used as an airborne army. So we're talking about paratroopers and gliders and all that they do. So once the decision's been made to create an airborne army, they are going to be used in an airborne role. So whether it was market garden or something else, they were going to get deployed. You don't spend all the money training up people to jump out of aircraft and creating the aircraft and creating the gliders and creating the infrastructure to support airborne troops, little tanks that can fit in gliders, all that, the well bikes, folding motorbikes, the Denison Smock, all the gear. You don't develop all that and then not use them. So yes, of course, parachute regiment troops, airborne forces are good in the ground role because they are well-trained soldiers. Look at the 101st on the Isle in Holland. Look at them. The Fallschirmjäger, German Fallschirmjäger, who are often able to put up a stubborn defense as ground troops. So yeah, they will always do a job for you and do a very good job for you. But is it the best use of the force you've got? So I would answer no. If you've got airborne troops, use them in an airborne role. Now, how and when you use airborne forces and to do what is another big question. But yeah. Why are there no German historians on your shows? I have a problem getting in touch with them. So there are a couple who have their own channels, who are so busy with their own channels, they don't need to come on mine. Military, what's the channel? Is it Military Analyzed? The other problem is I just have trouble making contact with them. I've sent emails to various German historians and not got replies, or they reply and they say they're not interested. Some say they don't feel their English was up to it. I also think there's possibly some wariness about the fact my shows are live. I think this has come up before. If you're a British historian and you write about the SS, for example, or an American historian, no one has any doubts about your motivation. You're simply a military historian studying the SS because you find it interesting and want to get to grips with what they did in World War II. If you're a German historian and you write about the SS, for example, or you write about the Wehrmacht or the Luftwaffe, I think there can be an instant suspicion. Why are you interested? Are you a Nazi? So I think German historians have a wariness about appearing on live channels like me because they think they may have their words misconstrued. They think that I might be trying to trip them up or make them say things they don't want to say. And it's very complicated being a German historian talking about the war. So I'd like to get more German historians on. If you know any who'd like to come on, please put them in touch with me. But the two or three that I know are busy with their own channels and don't need to come on mine. And I just wish I could remember what the channel is I'm thinking about, but it'll come to me later on. That's a good question. Fierce Apathetic Black Queen. LBGTQ. I have made contact with a historian fairly recently, or I'm about to make contact. I've found the details of a historian who's written about the Nazi persecution of the trans community. Now, the trans community in 1920s and 30s Germany was very small, but there was one. And by trans, I don't just mean transsexual, also transvestites. And I found there were German documentations. Trans people were on the list of people the Germans are trying to persecute. So that's an interesting show I want to try and get lined up. And generally, the persecution of homosexuals, etc., etc., etc. Because as we now know, the Holocaust was not just about killing Jews; it was about killing 11 million people who had different ideas. There was gypsies and politicians and poets and homosexuals, and so it is an area I like to do. My issue is whenever I do a show that even hints at anything LGBTQ, I lose viewers and I lose patrons. Some people out there don't like the fact that this channel is appearing to go woke. I say on my Twitter handle, I'm woke and quite woke and proud of it. Woke just means accepting of different views. So I want to do more content about the LGBTQ. I want to do more shows about that, but I accept the fact if I do something on my channel with a gay guest, an openly gay guest talking about this subject, I will lose viewers. I shouldn't lose viewers, and people who are so narrow-minded, they lose viewers. And if you're watching this right now, and you're angry that I'd even consider doing shows about gay servicemen or LGBTQ subjects, then kind of politely, you're not really welcome here, because I want to be open-minded and tolerant, allow all sorts of different people on my channel with different backgrounds. And if you're black, white, straight, hetero, whatever, gay, bi, whatever, I don't care. If you're interested in World War II, you're welcome here, and the subjects are fantastic. And Brad is offering to help with the Falaise book, so thank you. Interesting how Ask Many Things are quite popular, and yeah, and there were homosexual Nazis, and there's also the whole theory, by the way, that Hitler himself was homosexual, which I don't know that I buy into. But there's a book called Hidden Hitler by a German historian that I've read. Certainly there's some, you know how I'm going down a rabbit hole now, you know how there's, certain politicians who are very, very seem to be anti-gay. They are often the ones that they themselves then get caught in a motel in somewhere in a compromising position. It's that some of the worst homophobes are covering something. So that within the Nazi hierarchy, there are people who are very, very anti-homosexual who are masking the fact that they themselves might be homosexual. That's a big, big subject. There were some quite prominent early Nazis who were homosexual, who Hitler gets rid of along the way. So there were definitely queer Nazis. And that's another subject for another day. But that said, that series that was on Channel 5 in the UK fairly recently about Hitler's sexuality, I took it too far. There was too much speculation. It just became salacious and trying to make content out of nothing for me. So if I ever do shows about this aspect, it will have to be with kind of, I don't want to say academic rigor, but looking at the subject, not to just, make a show about something controversial for controversy's sake. It's because I've been wanting to say something on the wider subject of World War II, if that makes sense. I'll go down some more questions. Episode on Bailey Bridges, that'd be a really good thing. Yep, and that's on my list already. Going down there, I want to watch some football soon. The second half will start, so I'm not going for too much longer. But the Royal Navy were no doubt pleased. Portugal and therefore Spain stayed neutral. So even just going past Gibraltar, so there was neutrality and neutrality. yeah, I'll find a couple more questions and I'll move on. Neil's book will be in English. Yes, Ian. Thoughts? I'm trying to find a couple of easy ones. Are you thinking of trying to do some shows to link up with the release of Masters of the Sky? Yes, Masters of the Air. Definitely. I mean, I was hoping to get, when it was announced for October, I had a couple of shows lined up and then it was postponed to January. But definitely, John Orloff, the writer, has agreed to come on and do a question and answer. So I will definitely be doing something along with him. I will probably do some kind of review show. I may bring a group of 8th Air Force historians on and we will discuss the show and review it. Yes, definitely is the answer. I will be doing something about Master of the Air. Did anyone ever make a calculus about the amount of first-line troops at the Albert Canal from... Oh, blimey, it's a very specific one. I know you've been sending me emails, Richard, and you have a huge amount of knowledge about this subject. It's beyond what I know. Yeah, we'll have to discuss doing a show at some point. Have I covered assassinations in World War II? We did the assassination of the German general in Crete. We have talked about Heydrich's assassination in Prague, and I'm going to Prague in about 15 days' time and may do some live Woody's walkabouts. I'm going to Budapest, Prague, Brno, Bratislava. So I'm hoping to do some Woody's walkabouts, depending on internet connection, depending on weather, depending on that. So, but yeah, a show about assassinations would be really interesting. We did, of course, the death of Yamamoto. That wasn't an assassination. That was a lucky break. But yeah. The best book about Case Blue, Michael, is the one by Robert Forzik, I think it is, who I invite on the show, but he doesn't do podcasts. The Caucasus Campaign, off the top of my head, I can't think about a book, but Case Blue, I think it's Robert Forzik's book, is the best one I've read on that subject. Willie is recommending the April tour. It was I haven't got the dates set yet. We hope we're going to set up the dates at some point. But April. I'm probably going to go to the Society of Military History Conference. I think that's in like 17th of April. So probably before then, probably the first 2 weeks of April. It'll be in that period sometime. No, not done anything on the bomb plot yet. It's on the list. Everything's on the list somewhere. That may come up next year around the time of the 80th anniversary of Valkyrie. The question is what there is new to say on the subject. Brad is confirmed that Carrera and Monty did not get along. Monty didn't get along with quite a few people, as we know. Yeah, Canadians and British came to blows a few times at bars and brothels, and British troops fight amongst themselves in bars and brothels. The Scots will beat the living daylights out of the English. The Welsh will join in against the English. If the English go, will the Welsh and Scots fight each other, or they'll look for someone else? I mean, I grew up in an army town, so I know all about British regiments fighting each other. Is animosity really a Canadian v British v American thing, or more of a personality thing? That's a really good point, Rob. I think a lot of the animosity is personality based rather than nationality based. I don't think, I mean, Admiral King maybe has an issue with Brits, but then he's got British parents. I think mostly it's personalities, but I think historians over the years have tried to label it as being nationalistic because that sells books. You know, this guy hated the Americans, or the Australians hated the Americans, or yeah. So there. Do I find a couple more? Then I'll go and watch the rest of the football. Glad to hear Charlie is doing well. Yep, he's doing well. Yeah, he's getting better now. Try to see specific questions out. Because the sidebar is very active today, which is fantastic. Yeah, what is woke? Well, this is the thing. Well, we're going down a massive rabbit hole now, but woke is defined different ways by people on different sides of the argument. To me, woke is a positive thing. The definition of woke is trying to be tolerant of other people in society, and I think who would not want to be that? But some people on the other side say that woke means that you're trying to push lifestyles, you're trying to push certain agendas on people. So it's the same word. People have different definitions for it. So I see woke as a positive thing. Woke is, you know, if I'm somewhere, I would like to be tolerant of people who are there. A simple thing, like if I went to Ireland, I wouldn't go around with an England football shirt on. I would be respectful of the fact that might not be an appropriate thing. I would be careful about minding I don't say fuck when there's young children around, for example. That to me is what woke is about. It's being tolerant of other people's at base level. That's what woke is, being open, is being in a position where you're trying not to upset people, trying to be respectful to other people around you. But out of that, woke has become an argument. But that's all I'm going to say on it right now. But I consider myself woke. Thank you, Ivan, for noticing that we've had Philippine scholars talking about the Philippines. I wanted to have more people from the different countries I talk about. That's important to me, that I don't just have people from Britain and America talking about history, because there's so many great people. Roman Topol is one of the people, but he's very busy he's doing stuff on other people's channels. I'd love to get him on. And I have emailed him and I never got a reply. I think I emailed him twice and never got a reply. Maybe I didn't have the right email address. Maybe my message went in spam. I don't know. But take a double hit and invite Labour MP Chris Bryant on. He's written a book on LGBTQ people in the military. Yeah, he's on my radar. I've seen that book. So I think on comments on visiting Orador, you got to go to Orador Soglan. For those who don't know, is the town, sort of Limoges area, where the 2nd SS Panzer Division on their way to Normandy stopped and murdered over 600 French civilians on June the 10th in an act of evil that still shocks the world. And the remains of the village are still there as a silent, martyred village. And it's an important place to go. I'm planning, or Mag and I are planning, in 2025 probably a 10-day rest of France tour. So Lyon, Grenoble, Orador Soglan, SAS sites. In Limoges, maybe some Operation Dragoon stuff towards the south of France. That's something I'm working on for the future. Gerard, James Holland knows he's got an invite anytime. Holland is just ridiculously busy. I mean, he's in Italy today. Two or 3 days ago, he was canoeing around wherever it was in Britain for a charity. I want to get him on to talk about Salerno, but it's just finding time. And he does his own podcast and his own stuff. And James is very gracious and will always fit me in when he can. But yeah, he'll be on it. He will definitely be on, but I don't know when it'll be. Are there any World War II battles on World War I battlefields? Yeah, lots of them. I mean, the Eastern Front, particularly, some of the same areas are fought at Leningrad, in both wars. World War I, some of the areas where things got bogged down were the same areas where in World War II we nipped through them. And that's one of the things Lucy and I wanted to tackle on World War I TV, is kind of look at some of the same areas and say, why was it trench warfare in 1916 and why was it, mobile tank battles in 40 or 44? That's something we want to compare battlefields. So yes, there are quite a lot. But I'm going to end things now because I want to watch the rest. I want to watch the football. I haven't seen Ipswich play for 3 weeks, so I'm going to end things now before I miss. I've got about 35 minutes the second half to catch. So thanks for your attention, and we will get the show scheduled with Peter at some point, and I will see you again sometime. So in the meantime, thanks for watching. Thanks for your questions. Sorry I didn't get to them all. Yes, there'll be more Polish shows. Jenny Grant will be coming on at various points, and I've got others planned. But right now, I'm going to say cheers, everybody. I'm going to give Charlie a cuddle and watch the rest of the football. Cheers. Thanks for watching. Bye.